Welcome to Smokey Uncuffed. I'm Brian. On this podcast, we'll talk about law enforcement, social networking platforms, and just life. So right off the bat, I'm going to start with you. I always talk about Joe Rogan on here, who has the JRE Experience podcast. It's a huge podcast, widely acclaimed, probably the biggest in the world. The guy was an ex-MMA fighter. He also did, what was the name of that TV show? Fear Factor. He was the host of Fear Factor. He now does a lot of broadcasting for MMA, for the fights. And he also has this monstrous podcast, which he also videos like I do and puts them on YouTube. And he actually has two channels that does that. He has the full length one, which is the JRE Experience. And then he's got JRE Clips, which is like 12 to 15 minutes of the long podcast. So the reason I'm bringing this up, if you noticed in the news this last week, he just signed a deal with Spotify that by like September of this year, or maybe it was December of this year, he will have all of his content off of YouTube, all of his podcasts, everything is going to Spotify. So the reason he did this, just a few, it's a 9-figure deal. And I was listening to a podcast yesterday that was talking about it, how it's going to affect the smaller podcasters, because Apple is widely acclaimed to be the biggest podcast distributor out there. Spotify is the biggest in Europe. It's not the biggest in the United States. However, they offered him at least $100 million. It hasn't really been disclosed, but this podcast I was listening to yesterday was talking about it, about how it was going to affect the smaller ones and just how much money they think he got. They are thinking just south of $200 million. And they were bouncing around years between 4 and 7 years for $200 million. Well, who wouldn't do it? True, he's going to lose a lot of his watchers and listeners because I'm not going to pay money to go to Spotify. I think you can still listen to it for free, but I'm not going to go over there and pay money and subscribe so I can watch it. And that's what it's going to hurt him. That's what's going to hurt him a lot in losing listeners. Now then, his Europe base, probably going to go through the roof. So it was just something I found kind of interesting, that I always talk about monetizing this stuff on here, and this guy has just taken it not to the next level, to the most extreme level. Unbelievable. If it's just $100 million, poor thing. Because I would do it for $500,000. Let's be honest. But the kind of fan base he draws in, it would be great for Spotify, because they're truly wanting to start competing, I think, with YouTube. Because I believe with this, they're going to roll out a video line and start putting his YouTube videos on there, at least the ones that he already has up. And the crazier thing is he still owns all the content. It's still all his. They are just going to be hosting it. So he hasn't lost any part of his brand or anything like that. It's all still his. It's just going to be in a different spot. And I'm sure, like most of you, I would be just $100+ million. I'm not going to say I'm a lazy guy, but I'm thinking that after my contract was up and that money is banked, I'm done. Unless you're just in absolute love with all this stuff, which I actually really enjoy it, because I'm not making anything off this. I enjoy just doing it. But somebody at his level, he's also a full-time comedian. He would have the freedom just to kind of perform and do whatever he wanted anywhere, anytime. And that kind of money, you talk about freedom, that is ultimate freedom. It allows you all kinds of freedom. Okay, so now we're going to jump over here to, we just had Memorial Day. Hope everybody had a good, safe Memorial Day. And, down here where we were at, lots of rain, so it really kind of put a damper on a lot of people's fun down at our lake. But I'm just going to hit on a few things. If you've been watching the news, they've showed it more than once at Lake of the Ozarks. So they've lifted restrictions and let a lot of places open. And so this looked like a really huge swimming pool that they had up by Lake of the Ozarks. And if you've seen the footage, the people that were packed in to that pool, they were almost literally on top of each other. Again, common sense, people. Spread out a little bit. because as tight as they were packed in there, if anybody has it, now they've all got it, because in fact, the state of Missouri is asking all of those people to self-quarantine for 14 days. And I bet there were hundreds in there. I mean, it was a bunch. So this brings me back to something I've talked about before. So what do you do about it? The place is open. As law enforcement, as I've said before, how do you go in and enforce it? It's a business. It was like a public swimming pool. I mean, you're not going to run them out. Again, you're going to put yourself in a spot as a law enforcement officer. Crazy stuff. So also there on Memorial Day, I read a post on Facebook, and it was really a cool one. It was showing war dogs and celebrating them on Memorial Day because they were veterans of wars. And we've had them around in World War I through current wars. But what it was really focusing on in this one was war dachshunds, which really hits close to home because we have a dachshund. And she's a little long-haired weenie dog. Ornery, worthless, spoiled. I don't know how to explain her. Anyway, during the wars, they would train these dachshunds to be mine dogs or search dogs, search for people that were wounded. And apparently they were just invaluable because they were a small enough dog. You could put on some kind of harness, throw them over your shoulder, and take off walking. When you found an area that you thought there might be some mines, you drop this dog, give it the command, it goes out and scents, it finds them and points to them. And much the same with wounded soldiers. Whenever they were looking for people that were wounded, they would send these dogs out, they would find them, point, and there you go. And so it was just kind of paying tribute to this certain breed. The funny thing that I found about it, I was reading the article, and it went on to say that dachshunds were widely shunned in the United States after World War II. And it was simply because they were German. And I find this to be insane, but they did it. And I mean, in fact, they went on to say that people who owned them got shunned simply because they were a German dog. So now the National Kennel Association went on to change the name or lighten the name to weenie dog to make it more acceptable in the United States, which apparently it worked because they're everywhere. And I mean, the personality of these dogs, it's just unmatchable. They are hilarious, they're cantankerous, they're great alarms because anybody comes around your house, you're going to know it. They're going to bark at everything. But I just think it's funny that the people were shunned for owning a certain breed of dog. I mean, it's not like the dog could speak German. It's not like the dog had a swastika on it. I don't know. It's just an article I read that I found pretty funny. Okay, just another post that I ran onto there on Memorial Day. This one was awesome. It was some kind of big celebration. I'm not sure where it was at, but they had a guest speaker on that were speaking the words of a World War II veteran. And he ended up being a medic in the war. They had Sam Elliott come in and read this guy's words. You guys should really go check this one out. I don't remember the name of it, but I can tell you how to find it. Go to my Facebook page. It's Brian McGill, M-C-G-I-L-L, Brian McGill. And I shared it on my timeline. So you can just go to my post and find it with Sam Elliott on there. And it was, you really need to listen to all of it. Man, it's a moving one. And what was even wilder is after he got done talking about all this stuff, about all these things this medic had gone through, what he had seen, their biggest fears were, what are our parents going to think? Because they were just, kids back then, 18, 19 years old. And so after he gets done speaking, Sam Elliott walks off the stage, walks down to the front row, and the man is there. And he stands up, gives him a hug, and of course, it was a very moving speech. And it was a very moving situation when the guy was actually there to hear his own words spoke to this huge crowd. And just on that note, if you missed the chance to thank a current service member or a veteran, man, there's no time like now. You can thank them anytime you want. I'm sure they don't get tired of it because they are the backbone of this nation whenever it comes to our freedoms. And I mean, I don't know anybody that could be more thankful. I mean, because wow. Look where we live. We could be in places where we weren't allowed the freedoms we have. We could be in places where you were, what country was it? It was in South America. Places where like you had to quarantine and there were people on patrol. If you left your house and gave any kind of defiance, you're shot. I mean, they shoot you on the spot. You either obey or die. So, I mean, you could be in that kind of civilization. And who would want that? I mean, that is unbelievably scary. So, I mean, these people are starving because they only get to go to the store like once a week, and you better get everything you need. And because you cannot come back out your front door until the next week. And then you've got to have permission at that point. So definitely, if you're ever out and about, you got to thank a service member or thank a veteran. Okay, so now to the next one. I'm sure you've all seen this one. It's where the police officer puts his knee in the guy's neck. That was, I mean, obviously the guy wasn't obeying to a point that they had to put hands on, but I understood what the officer was trying to do. So here, to give you a little story, this black gentleman, I'm not sure why he was being arrested. It might have been a protest. I don't remember exactly what the whole backup was, and actually I don't think I've heard the whole story. But for whatever reason, officers decided to take hands on. They took this guy to the ground. He was fighting them a little bit, but it wasn't like anything just atrocious. But the officer knelt down, put his knee on the guy's neck. The guy's cuffed, and he's sitting there screaming, "Hey, I can't breathe, can't breathe." And so long story short, the guy ends up dying. I mean, apparently he did enough trauma to the throat that the guy died. So here's problem one with the whole thing. Problem one is once the guy's cuffed, you really probably don't need to be holding him down anymore. I don't get that. He's already detained. Okay, problem two, the whole deal of pinning somebody to the ground with your knee is fine, but you either do it between the shoulder blades. We often actually did it on the head, because if your head is pinned to the ground, you can't get up. I mean, that's just the facts of it. You can't get up. Now, granted, I mean, maybe the guy couldn't reach the guy's hands if he's on his head, but that had more than one officer there. It shouldn't have been a situation where he had to stand on the guy's neck. And obviously now, I mean, this guy's in trouble. This is probably going to be some serious charges on him. And I'm not saying it shouldn't. It might have just been a lapse in judgment. I don't know. But just in all, putting it on somebody's neck where their breathing can be manipulated, never a good idea. So, I mean, we did that stuff, but when we would do it, we would just hold somebody's head down. And usually it wasn't a knee. We just used our hands and help pin somebody's head to the ground, because you can't get off the ground if your head's pinned to the ground. And then the second officer would go ahead and cuff them. It really kind of stabilized the situation for you. This one was just handled wrong. I mean, again, I'm outside looking in, don't know all the facts, so I'm armchair quarterbacking here. But just from what I've seen on video and from what I've heard, yeah, these guys are in trouble. And let's go on to the Arbery case, the one out of, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, down that area. The one where the black gentleman got out and went for a jog. And which I found out he was running in a predominantly white neighborhood, which not a big deal. I don't see a problem with that. But for whatever reason, these two guys, whatever you want to call them, rednecks, racists, KKK, whatever you want to call them, they found it necessary to take off and chase this guy down with guns, although the guy's just jogging, and confront him to the point that, the fight ensued and the black gentleman died. So the latest thing that's broke on it, they are also charging the guy that videoed him with murder, that videoed the whole thing, because they're saying now that he tried to use his vehicle to stop the runner himself. And so they're saying he's involved, which I've always found a little fishy. I mean, why would you be filming this white truck and a guy jogging? Because he was filming before it ever really took place. He had to have known something. The other side of that, did he have to release it? I mean, I would think if he was truly involved, if he truly thought somebody was going to die out there, he wouldn't have even videoed it or released it. Because had there been no footage of this, what do you think would have happened? It took them 78 days to make an arrest on this, for this to come to light and then to make an arrest on this. If there had not been video footage, I think this would have just been swept down the road. Just because of the way it was handled. I don't know, that one has finally gone to the DOJ, the Department of Justice. And so this one's going to be a big deal. These guys are all going to prison, I think. And rightfully so, because this was nothing more than cold-blooded murder. Okay, here we go. nothing I'm about to say should be used as professional legal advice. I'm just a retired law enforcement officer, just telling you my view on how laws work. So please don't think you're going to go to court and use any of this information to get you out of any trouble. I am not true legal advice. If you do need true legal advice, please consult an attorney and get you some proper representation. So first off the bat, I got one, I just heard this one today. In fact, somebody was talking to me about it. And so here's your situation. Somebody's out on the town, say a son and a dad are out on the town. Well, dad gets somewhere and drinks too much and gets put in a situation. Now the son is 15 and a half and has a driver's permit. Can the son legally drive in that situation? Okay, so here's going to be your issue. On a driver's permit, you're supposed to have a responsible adult in the car. Well, if the guy's intoxicated, he's not responsible. So, yeah, there's a problem here because this guy's not going to be able to properly direct the kid if there's something that comes up, says, oh, okay, no, go right here, go left, go around him or stop. He's not going to be able to kind of give them any kind of information like that because this guy's intoxicated. And if he does, it may be the wrong information. So, legally, is there a problem here? Yeah, because the guy in the passenger seat is going to be considered public intox because you are in the public. You are not considered out of the public inside your car because your car is in the public. So the problem you're going to have here is, do you let the kid drive? Well, let's weigh the points here. If the kid's been at it for a little while and he's a pretty decent driver, yeah, I would. The kid driving is a far better choice than the dad driving because dad is obviously going to be DUI. The kid is not, so at least he is a sober driver. He is legally operating a vehicle with an adult in the car, but it's not a competent adult that could give some good advice. So I'm thinking, yes, if they get pulled over, there's going to be an issue with the passenger being intoxicated because the kid's 15 and a half. I don't think the kid would be in a lick of trouble. I think he'd be absolutely fine. Now, the good option would have been call somebody else. I mean, that would have been the right option. That's not what happened. But, I mean, I honestly almost think that the dad ended up just driving, which, worse idea. But, I mean, I don't think they got caught. I mean, that's, I guess, their saving grace. But it was just the point was brought up that if the 15 and a half year old drives with an intoxicated adult with him, is he right? Again, if I stop that, I'm not blaming the kid. I'm blaming dad. And not saying, I don't know. I mean, it'd be a tough one because if they're out in the middle of nowhere, do you arrest dad? Because if you arrest dad for public intox, now the kid can't get home because he legally can't drive on just a permit. Because if you did that, you let him go, now he's not an insured driver because that insurance falls on dad, which is supposed to be directing the kid. You know, it's just one of those tricky deals. So just in that instance of the two, yeah, I'd let the kid drive before I'd let dad because the kid is at least permitted. So for my last podcast, I talked a little bit about construction zones and those merge signs and about how people try to race all the way up to right where the traffic starts to neck back in and then jump in traffic. And I was saying that I'm that guy that will just sit there and not let you in. So I got a lot of kickback off this one, or a lot of feedback, I should say. So I had the majority of you that answered or sent me a comment agreed with me. You're that guy too, in which, you know, I mean, I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but I just disagree with not obeying the signs because it's for everybody's safety. But I'm just going to tell you, I did get some feedback off that one. I had some from both sides, just very few that argued with me because they were just griping because I'm the kind of guy that wouldn't let them in if they needed in. Well, you know what? I don't have to. I'm established in that lane. I don't have to let you in by law. So those that argued with me and or griped at me about it, it's just the way it is. I'm probably not even going to change my ways. And just so you know, there are a bunch more like me out there because the amount of comments I got that were like me and not like you was very lopsided. So you're going to have to deal with more just me on that one. Okay, bear with me just a second. I'm sitting here reading if it's vehicle's going down the road. Okay, so here's the question. So if you're going down a roadway, is it illegal to back up on a state highway? Yes. It's just a simple answer for me right there is yes. So the second part to their question, if you back your car in the proper direction of traffic in the correct lane, is that illegal? Again, yes, it's illegal. I don't remember the exact statute for that, but you have to be in a forward-facing seat when traveling down a highway system. And if you're in reverse, obviously you're facing the wrong way. I don't remember the exact statute, but just to help you out, I don't even know why you would ask this question, to be honest. I mean, are you really thinking about getting on the interstate and driving backwards? Because your car won't do as fast backwards. You are aware of that. But I really don't have much more to say about that one. I'm just amazed sometimes at the questions. I appreciate all the questions. I'm not trying to make fun of anybody, but why would you want to drive backwards down the highway? Okay, this one here is a lot simpler. If you're at a four-way stop and one road is a highway and the other road is a county road and you all get there at the same time, who goes first? Well, I'm going to tell you one of the two that's on the highway, because the highway takes precedence over the county road. And beyond that, it's the same old rule, whoever got to the stop sign first. If you got there at staggered times, because rarely do four cars pull up at the exact same time. So if whoever got there first, so if the county roadman actually got there first, then it's your turn. But if it's a tie and everybody's there, like two cars, just say two cars pull up, one on the county road, one on the highway, and you're both at a stop sign, well, one on the highway goes first because that highway takes a precedence. Now then, here's my question. I mean, what? I'm trying to think of what highway you would be on that had a four-way stop at a county road. Because to me, just the county road should have had a stop sign. So let me simplify this for you even more. So say you're at a four-way stop and one is paved and one is gravel. The paved road takes precedence over the gravel road. It's considered a thoroughfare, so the gravel road is just a county road. So the dirt road gets precedence over the dirt road. The paved road gets precedence over the dirt road. That's what I'm trying to say. So maybe that's what you're asking, and maybe that should be my answer for it. Because I'm wondering what state highway you're running down that just has a stop sign in the middle of nowhere for a county road. I don't know that I've actually seen that. Okay, the next one, obviously written by a younger man. He's asking, if you ran from the police, he actually says cops, but the police or law enforcement, and you happen to get away and you go to your residence, can they still come get you a day or two later for that crime? Absolutely. They sure can. So here's going to be the law enforcement's biggest problem with this side is, okay, so say it's a day later and we locate you, or locate the car that we were chasing. If I did not have a good view of the driver, it's going to be hard to pin this on somebody just because it's the car. So I mean, most people will say, oh, Billy Bob borrowed it, he was driving it. And then you go find Billy Bob, and Billy will, no, I'd loaned it to so-and-so. Well, then you run down that path. So there's going to be the real issue. If they can identify you as the driver, yeah, you're in trouble. Or if they can identify who the driver was, that person's in trouble for running in that vehicle. It's not necessarily the vehicle that's going to be the issue. It's going to be the driver. That's what they're after. So they could still impound your vehicle. I mean, if they know for a fact they got your tag and they know for a fact that's the car, they'll just impound your vehicle until you come forth and start telling the truth. So you'll be without a car until then. So if this is something you actually did, and you're thinking they're going to come snooping around, dude, I'd just pay the piper. I'd just go talk to them and say, hey, this is what's up. This is who it was. It was me. It was her. It was whoever was driving. Yeah, we ran. We shouldn't have. And I understand there's going to be consequences of it. But the fact that you stepped forward and just turned yourself in and said I was just stupid, it's probably going to it's going to look better on you in the long run. So, of course, your best option right there is just never run. I mean, if those lights come on, just pull over. I mean, at worst, and if you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing, which obviously you probably were, or else you'd have just stopped. But if you were thinking you could just outrun them just cause, it's never a good idea. So in finishing this one up, over Memorial Weekend, we did have a little cookout at my in-laws, and it was only family there. And one of the cousins' girlfriend was there with him. And she is just about, I think she's finishing LPN school. I'm not positive because I don't think she's been out long enough to do RN. So I think it's LPN school. So she was talking about clinicals and sitting in on surgeries and doing certain things. And so I started talking about it. You know, I was a medic for years, and so I had to intubate people for paramedic school. And we got to talk about surgeries. And so she got to talking about how neat some of the surgeries were. And I said, well, you know, I didn't really need to go see surgeries. I've seen all the carnage I need to out on the roads. So I started telling some stories. One of them, which I'm not going to get in depth on all these simply because I might talk about them later. But one of them was a suicide on the interstate that laid down in front, on the center line, got run over by a semi, twisted him in half and strung him out. And the part that grossed her out was when the medical examiner got there, I asked him for a pair of gloves because you can't leave body parts on a roadway. And so I went and helped him pick up body parts. Grossed her out, which I started laughing. You're going to be a nurse. You better get used to the grossness. But it's just in different contexts, because if you're doing it in a surgical suite, it is a lot different because all the cuts are clean, everything's really precise, and if you're doing the stuff I did, it was blunt force trauma. I mean, it was nasty. There was nothing precise about it. I told her about that one. I told her about one where I chased the motorcycle and the guy's hand got split in half. And there was one more. Oh, the one where I worked on some younger men that hit a tree and one got ejected and his brains came out his ears. I mean, it's stuff like that. And she was done. She was, I don't want to hear anymore. I just found it funny because she was in the medical field and this grossed her out. But I guess she's in a controlled environment when she's seeing it. And that may be the part that she's really envisioning. None of my stuff was a controlled environment. I mean, even when I was a medic, most of my stuff was not a controlled environment. Most of my stuff was picking people up out of wrecks, picking people up from homes right after the injury occurred. And so, yeah, a lot of it's gross stuff. So I'm going to wrap this one up, guys. Like I told you last time, I'm working on it. I'm going to try to get some more people to interview in here since social distancing has been relaxed but not gone. I mean, I don't know. We may be doing it in mask if whoever I get doesn't want to be in close proximity. I get it. So you guys, please don't forget to go check me out at www.smokeyuncuffed.com. That's www.smokeyuncuffed.com. There you can find all the links to the stuff that I'm using. All my podcasts are on that website. And I do have a link for Smokey CNC Woodworks t-shirts. Hadn't got Uncuffed one yet. Still working on those t-shirts. So if you hadn't checked out Smokey CNC Woodworks, run right over there on YouTube, check that one out and subscribe. And when you guys watch any of this stuff, please think about it. If you know somebody out there that likes podcasts or wants to watch some YouTube, share it with somebody, because that just helps us out. That gets us generating more viewers, more listeners. It just helps us out in the long run. So guys, that's going to be about it for today. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe, and I'll see y'all and hear y'all next time.